bet. I'll cross it off mine. Okay, thanks, Jonah.
Welcome everybody. I love seeing the admin folks all way in the back. Like they always tell their students not to be, there is room up front, or you're afraid that's the splash zone. Anyway, if you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone had a nice break. We've got a nice full agenda, really great presentation coming up, and budget stuff to talk about, so I'm not going to say much else in terms of comments other than to welcome everyone back, and very glad we're here and for this kind of last stint of the school year to put the budget together and finish everything up. So we're just going to start right to approval of minutes. Anybody had any comments about the minutes, or if not, a motion to approve? Okay. Okay, May. I know we got to get back into the thing here, into the pace. Okay, I have a second. Okay, and second by Jamie. All in favor? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. Next, adjustments to the agenda. I believe we have one.
Yeah, just one additional retirement. So if we could just add that under 12.2A.
Yep. Thank you. And then 6.0, the public session. I know all our administrators left room for the public who didn't show up. So if there is no one who wants to speak, okay, we'll move on. I'm going to turn this over to, yeah. She's a teacher. Yeah. Thanks. I'm going to turn it over to Patrick for our staff report from Leslie Gallant.
So we're pleased to have Leslie here tonight. Leslie, come on up. And she's a kindergarten teacher for us, and she's going to, I guess, educate the board and the administrators that are not at the elementary level about our Heggerty program, which is focused on phonemic and phonological awareness. And so she's going to show a video, I believe, of your class doing this, and then she's going to explain a little bit more about why we're doing it, and then possibly put the board through a little dry run of what our students experience. Yeah, oh, okay. Leslie, yeah, take your time. Thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm very passionate about it as a mom as well as a kindergarten teacher. Let's define some terms first, okay? So phonological awareness is the bigger umbrella term. People like to consider it as an umbrella. And then under that umbrella is phonemic awareness. Phonological awareness, they're oral skills, no letter, no print involved. So the phonological is the bigger parts. It's the rhyming, it's the words and sentences, it's clapping out syllables. The phonemic awareness is when you get to the individual phonemes, which means an individual letter sound. So that's when children chop out words and then put the sounds back together to read a word, or they can chop out a word to write down each sound that they hear. That's more phonological awareness. And there is can you guys pass out those papers? Did you already do that? Oh, it's so quiet. You guys are so quiet. Okay, that's good. Thank you. So we're doing it because students need to make these connections, essential connections between the oral language and written language for reading and for writing. So if you happen to be glancing at this paper right now, you can hear your voice in your head. If you stop and think about it, you're really being an oral storyteller in your head. But the print makes sense to you because we're of the age that we are. And we've done all this pre-reading skills and pre-writing skills, excuse me, that a pre-K, kindergarten, first grader really needs to focus on and concentrate with. So this year, in our district, the whole entire district, all the schools adopted, I call it the big blue book. This is the kindergarten version. There's a yellow book. There's a purple book, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, and for this year also second grade, because they have not had the instruction in the past, just to make sure that they were caught up with this instruction in practice. Next year, it's going to be pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade will be working from these big Hegarty books. So it's written by Hegarty. That's why we call it Hegarty, but it's phonemic awareness, really. So on this paper, there's a grid about the systems for reading and reading comprehension. The phonological processing system is what we're going to be doing right now, and you're going to see a video of my kindergarten students doing it. It's very connected to the orthographic processing system, which means as you're reading, there's no possible way that we can be efficient readers and understand what we're reading if we read each letter all by itself. You've got to be able to look for chunks of words. Like when you see OULD, you know that's could, would, should, something like that. This is the reason you can do the Wordle if you do the Wordle, because you can do chunks of letters. And you know that if you have an A, K, E, it's probably in that order, chances are, or EA or something. You know what I mean? Like it's chunks. It's crucial to be able to read efficiently and with meaning in mind. So let's get up the video, shall we? So the Hegarty has 8 different parts. You're going to see 8 different parts. This program has 10 words for each section. There's 8 different sections of phonological awareness in here, or phonemic awareness. And I cut it down into half, so it would only be 3 minutes long instead of the usual like 6 to 8 minutes long, just so you know. So let's see, I'm going to share my screen. And I didn't think it was wise to have a bunch of 5 and 6-year-olds, sort of the beginning of the witching hour, perhaps. I don't know, for that age group. So I just thought a video might be nicer. Okay, that's why we did that. Okay, for the school board. All right. So the grid at the bottom are the 8 different phonological awareness skills that are practiced during this 3-minute video. Mrs. Kenny, you might recognize somebody. So the volume is not playing. Oh, wait, do I need to unmute myself? Is that playing on that? Oh, I know why. I'm going to breathe for a minute. I shared the tab, and then the video opened up to a new tab. I can't share a tab right now. Just give me a second. Share this tab and set. Look, there's an option.
Floss, flake.
All right, we're going to go back to the beginning. Okay, here we go.
What rhymes with claim, blame or cloud?
Rhyming.
What rhymes with glow, glove or blow? What rhymes with slot, plot or slim? What rhymes with flu, glue or flight? What rhymes with place, climb or brace? Nice. I'm gonna say 2 words, you're gonna say 2 words.
go
You're
on
gonna
to
say the
onset
beginning
fluency.
sound. Slam, sled. Floss, flake. Blaze, blush. Bowl, globe, gloss. Goal, cloud, club. Hole, plot, plow. Nice. I'm gonna chop, you're gonna say the word. Here we go.
Blending. This is blending.
Ip. Oh. Let's do that one again. Oh. Slow. Nice. Each. Nice. All right, we're gonna punch it out. Cartoon.
Isolating. We're working on the final.
Cartoon.
Isolating. Final.
Amuse. Curb. Jump. Cupcake. Wait, let's do that one together.
That's challenge. 2 syllables. It's challenging.
Nice. Shake it out. Shake it out. Shake it out. Shake it
This is
out.
when I
shake
turn
it
the
out.
page and give them a little extra.
Shake it out. Shake it out. Shake it out. Shake it out. All right, I'm gonna say a word. You're gonna say a word. We are going to chop it.
Segmenting.
Clock. Slip. It. Place. Nice. Say it. Add a full in it.
Adding.
Add a cool in it. Aim. Add a pull in it. Eep. Add a soul in it. Place. Take away the soul in it. Clay. Take away the coal in it. Black. Take away the bull in it. Pleat. Take away the pull in it. Flow. Take away the full in it. Nice. Shake it out. Shake it out.
Right, baby.
Shake it out.
We're going to
Shake it
substitute.
out. Shake it out. Shake it out. Shake it out.
These are the higher level skills.
Say rice. Take away the and add a soul in it. Say cheese. Take away the and add a pull in it. Say my. Take away the and add a full in it. Say do. Take away the do and add a gull in it. Tank. Take away the and add a bull in it. Nice. Give yourselves a round of applause.
All right, that's the end of that. So that's them doing part of it. The exciting part of it, after this, we go into some phonics. The minute you hear the word phonics, it means there's print involved. We have letter cards. They say letter is B, sound B, or letters are, we're getting into blends now, which is very exciting. 2 letters put together to make 2 distinct sounds, but they're still blends together like a CL, coal, or SL, soul. So the minute print is introduced, it is phonics. I just like to distinguish between the phonemic awareness and the phonics. Again, phoneme is the smallest unit of sound. This book has progressed since week 1 all the way up. There's week 35. And so that carries us through the whole entire school year. We started with concept of word. We started with syllables. We started with rhyming. And then we broke it apart, took the beginning sound off and had the chunk at the end. That's called the onset and the rhyme. Then now we're at the phoneme level and we're chopping apart blends, and it's very exciting. It's big work. It's hard work. It's big work. You guys ready to give it a try? Okay, let's give it a try. We're going to do the more advanced sections. Oh, I brought you back to week 22. You're on week 22. They're on week 28. You're good. We're good. We're cool. We're going to do it together. And there are hand motions that go along with it. I don't know if you could tell that some of the students were doing some hand motions. So as the teacher facing the class, I do it backwards for me. So that's a learning curve. That was a learning curve for a lot of people in the beginning. We practiced. So you guys could be dancers or music people, or aerobics people, and you're used to doing the reverse. Just as a young child, if I start on this side, you're going to start on the left, because we try to still make the words go left to right, like you would when you were reading or writing. Do you know what I mean? So you'll see as we get going. Okay. We're going to do 4 different sections. Okay. We're going to do segmenting first. So these are the more sophisticated skills, you could say. Segmenting, adding, deleting, and the last one, substituting. So for the segmenting phonemes, you do a hand chop. We're going to break apart the word. So we're just going to segment it. So I'm going to say peg. So ready? Let's just try it. It's 3 sounds. I'm bringing you back before the blends. Peg. And we're going to go p-e-g. And that's it. Wake. W-a-k. Hole. O-o. Mit. M-it. Cuff. K-a. You guys did very good. That was good. Okay, and in the beginning of the year, I also want to tell you, because their attention span is quite small, in the beginning, and that's what it's supposed to be. When we did that shake it out thing, we do that now just when I turn the page. Just about at every 8 parts, they would do something different. They would get up and stand behind their chair and do segmenting. They would stand beside their desk to do blending. They would get in front of their desks. And so that's all this language of instruction too that you can incorporate, but they were moving their bodies. And now they just are, just that much more slick because it's almost May. Okay, adding phonemes. This one is hands out. And I'm going to say the end, so that's why I'm starting with this hand, mirror to you. I'm going to say ope. We're going to add a and it's rope, like that. So I'm going to say an, add a and it's man. Ig, add a p, and it's pig. Yeah. Ice, add a v, and it's vice. Un, add a d, and it's dune. That's it. Check it out. And then deleting phonemes. So this one, you hold the pawns again. I'm going to take away the beginning sound. You're going to say what's left. So if I say him, take away the and what's left, im. Vote, take away the v, and it's oat. Tight, take away the t, and it's ite. This is where the wordle part comes in, all these little word parts. Lake, take away the ul, and it's jet. Take away the j, and what's left? Jet. And then they would shake it out. One more part. Substituting. So this one has two closed fists. I'm going to take it apart with one sound and add another sound to make a new word. So we're going to say 5, take away the f, and add a d, and the word is dive. So they're rhyming words. Hoop, take away the h, and add a s, and it's soup. Tone, take away the t, and add a z, and the word is zone. Niece, take away the n, and add a p, and it's peace. Tail, take away the t, and add a and it's rail. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yeah, that's part of it. That's the Haggerty program. Really excited. The whole entire school is doing it. Beth Kaiser helped. So I was the trainer at Dyke Newell School. Beth Kaiser, the interventionist, one of the interventionists at Woolwich Central School, was the trainer for her school and for Phippsburg as well. So we've all had the training. Beth and I worked very closely together with Katie to plan the training, to provide the training, 3 of them over this year. I think it's been a very successful implementation. We do have data that we're starting to collect 3 times a year. There's a grid on the back. I think it's compared to last year to this year, just in kindergarten, because that's what I had access to through Melissa Ray Dowell. She's the interventionist at Dyke Newell School, and she compiled this data. And I think what's going to be more interesting data as we grow, I just wanted you to know that we're doing the data. You know, it's another data point for children for their learning and growth or deficits that need extra help and stepping up. Next year's first graders, after they've had 1 full year and then another full year, I think will be very, very interesting. Even further, the following year when they've had it in pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade, I think that's going to be very, very powerful. But I wanted you to know that these are the sort of things that we're looking at. This is March to March in kindergarten. We didn't have as many students last year, but already last year there were 2 classes that were doing it in kindergarten, and now all 5 of us are, because it's what the district is doing. So this data is important. Individual child data is important because it shows the students who are getting it, and then it exposes the children who are not getting it as easily. And we can do early interventions on this sort of work so that hopefully when they get to their bigger reading, multisyllabic words, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and expectations grow, we can help them to be successful readers and spellers, really. That's it. Any questions? Thoughts?
Thank you. That's amazing. Questions from?
I just wanted to add, first of all, thank you. That was so fun
Yeah, you're
and so clear. So thank you, Leslie and Beth Kaiser, who's not here, for your work all year to make this happen. And I just wanted to share with the board that this really kind of completes the loop for what we've been looking to do with literacy. We still will have a literacy or ELA committee next year to continue with our work and research on how to tackle phonics, but we did that huge purchase a few years ago, and as well as the professional development on guided reading and reading mini lessons, and bought all of those new high interest texts for our K-5 students. We've purchased Lexia,
Which is a fantastic program. Just going to chime it in there. Okay? I speak again as a parent and as a teacher.
and that sort of covers, here, what does it cover,
Oh,
Leslie?
Just about everything.
Yeah, so
Fluency, comprehension, snap words, letters, letter sounds, all phonics, all phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, rhyming. It has 21 levels. It goes up to 5th, 6th grade, kindergarten through. It's engaging. There's levels. It's really,
Yeah, and that's a great description because it really allows us to differentiate based on skill for students, and also has extra lessons.
oh, there's extra lessons, and they don't let you move on. I'm sorry. I have to
No,
take
yeah,
over for
no, this is
hours.
great. Keep
And
selling it.
It teaches you. It's a program that teaches you. You don't just click an answer and get it wrong. Like if there's 3 choices, that'll drop you back and you get 2 choices. And then they work you through those 2 choices. Then you've got to earn your right back to get to your 3 choices before you can even move through something. So it's a teaching program as well. And it's very intuitive, very individual student need based.
Great.
Be
So
quiet.
with the Fontes and Pinnell, and then Lexia, and then this Haggerty phonemic awareness, that kind of completes the loop, hopefully, for completely revamping how we look at literacy consistently in the district and how we collect data. So it's going to be really exciting, like Leslie said, overall, to see over the next couple years, how does a 2nd grader who's gotten to go through each year of these programs differ in data from past years and in performance. So that's great. And I think that, this also allows us to really choose to focus on math next year, like we've talked about with that contract with Maine Math and Science, because we'll continue to monitor the literacy piece. But I think, looking at these results, I think we're ready to move on and start thinking about some other subject areas. So thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering, how does it differ from the previous learning style?
Well, I've only been here for 3 years in the district, but I can tell you as a kindergarten teacher for the past 20-ish something, 2 years, I don't know. I know you've probably heard that literacy learning and probably math learning, goes up and down and up and down, up and down. So it's not different. It's always been something that's out there, but the difference is now that we can have brain scans and MRIs of students and children and adults as they're actually reading. So now you can actually see the processes of the brain and how they look at print and how they process print. I don't know that part at all. I just got to let you know that, but it's in all the research books and everything that people are now looking at brains and studying them as children are reading. And they can see, like, if a student is dyslexic and has trouble, this is the area that they have trouble in. They can see which part of the brain is activated, and the phonological processing part, which I mean, it's in there. I don't know what part, but it doesn't activate. It doesn't naturally activate on its own. So you have to awaken it, and you have to train it, and you have to learn it. It has not come naturally. So this sort of stuff has always been around, but previously, before MRIs and the brain research that can happen now, they didn't know why it worked. They just know it did work. They being teachers, researchers, doctorate people that get their doctorates in education. But now the brain and the MRI stuff, it's fascinating. I think that you can see which part of the brain is activated when it's reading. So now when people talk about the science of reading, I feel like that's the part of the science of reading, because there's actually science that people can do now in research facilities and universities and such. So it's not different. It's just coming back around the wheel with a lot of power behind it. Yeah.
That's great. Other questions?
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Oh, sorry, Jennifer.
Hi, Leslie, thank you. That was a great presentation. I think maybe another answer would be to how is this different would be, I think there's a great power in having one program and having not only just for the students to be able to have a repetition and a consistency across the grade levels. We saw that when we implemented everyday math.
Yep.
As teachers, we started using the same language and the same process. So it was an amazing help to students because it was a building blocks. So this sounds like another one of those wonderful building block kind of programs. And so I'm kind of wondering, as you go through this, does it also help parents if they're hearing consistently the same information about their child's growth? Does it perhaps also help them understand the basic components? Because each teacher is using the same language. So I think there's a power behind that in the consistency. I really like the way that they were using beginning, developing, and meets in terms of trying to see where the students are on the spectrum. I think that if we use that consistency in other programs, it also helps parents get into the same process and be familiar, because
Yes.
we're teaching them as well as we're teaching the students, which is so critical. So
100%.
I think consistency helps them.
Sure.
I guess my question would be, and this would be for any program, but when we're talking about phonemic awareness, does this program that we're looking at now, does it respond or address students that have auditory processing issues or hearing issues?
Hearing issues, if they've been diagnosed, I would think, would be something that would be written into like an IEP or something as a, a help, an assistance.
Right,
for
but does the
that.
program give any suggestions to a teacher or
Not
help
so
anything in
much,
that? Okay.
But as far as the auditory processing goes, I
Yep.
feel like, and as well as dyslexia goes, and anything that's a spelling or a word pattern or a reading issue, if every student has this solid instruction through their pre-K, K, and 1, sometimes it's difficult to tease out those sort of nuances of that
Mhm.
sort of thing when they're younger.
Yep.
So moving forward, we know they've all had the exposure and they've all been involved with it. And you'll see that there are some students who might not have been physically involved with it. And every now and then their mouth might have moved. But
Yeah.
I also do it, we can do it in small groups as well. And
Right.
I know that they know it because they can know it on the assessment, but they might not participate so much full group, which is definitely an age sort of thing and a
Mhm.
personality thing, really.
Mhm.
But I also feel like, so students moving forward, if they have an auditory processing disorder, if they have dyslexia or something, we have this information that they've had this 3 years of solid instruction. And so if they're still not getting it, then that's a big like, aha, we need to dig a little bit deeper for this student to see how we can best educate them and
Mhm.
teach them. So
Great, no, thank you. I
feel
think
things could be
that's
found
a
easier.
wonderful approach. And then I guess the last thing I was going to, no, I have one more thing and I've lost it already, but thank you, that was
Okay.
wonderful.
Good. Okay. I'm available. I'll go in.
Any other questions? Leslie, that was fantastic.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And
Thanks, Leslie.
I just had one question, so then this is obviously the auditory, and then how are phonics incorporated? Is that done separately? Is it done simultaneously? I mean, how do
Actually, interestingly enough, in this program, right at the very end, right now we're working through nursery rhymes. So that's rhyming incorporated into something that's
Right.
real, and working on sight words through that. And concept of a word, I mean, you got to go right back down to it. Letters make words. Words are how we read. Put them all together, they make a sentence and a paragraph. So there are beautiful letter cards that have like a ball for B sort of thing.
Mhm.
So at the end, you flash it through and you go, letter is C, sound K, letter is D, sound D. So that's where the phonics
So it
come
kinda
in.
comes
So
in at the end.
and then we talk about blends and digraphs, or when two
Nice.
letters come together and make one sound, like CH or SH
Mhm.
or WH, PH. Those are all taught. And it's incredible. There were some non-believers that people are like, how are they going to learn all the letters just by doing the cards every day? Well, you do the cards every day.
Yeah, that's how you do
You
it.
do the
yeah.
cards every day. And then
Yeah.
you try to beat your time and you try to do it in a minute. So it makes it very efficient, and they're very, automaticity is super important when you're reading. So yes, there is a phonics component in that. As
I
soon
was
as
just
the-
curious, or even if
Yeah.
it wasn't with that, how it was incorporated
Yep,
in.
there
But
is.
yeah,
Yep, and it's a boom, and it's quick, and it's good, and it's beautiful cards with key pictures that start with that.
well, it sounds like you said, they took the modern science and went old school with flashcards. How we all go, whether it was
Right.
math or letters. Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Thank you very
Right? And we
much.
still have the reading
Let-
program and the writing program, obviously. This is sort of the bridge. I feel like word
Mhm.
study and word work and word games are the bridge between, the very important bridge, mind you. I feel like that's our world,
Yeah.
kindergarten, between reading and writing. It's the
Exactly.
bridge.
Great. Thank you
Lou?
so much.
Thank you.
Well, I just remember what I was thinking about. I learned this as a kid in the 70s from PBS,
Yep.
from the electric company.
Yeah.
There
yeah.
used to be two silhouettes.
Yeah.
And they would say the beginning part and the end, and they would say it together.
Mhm.
So it does go around.
Mhm.
That's a very tiny part of it. But
We're
when I
all
was
right here.
hearing this, that childhood brain like started going, oh, I've seen this somewhere. Where
You
was
can
it?
find those still. They're kind of fun.
Big fan of the old stuff.
They're kind of fun. Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's move on to committee reports, curriculum assessment instruction update. Katie?
So for my report this evening, I'm just going to review what we'll be offering for summer for our students with our federal funds, and just do a brief overview for each grade span. So for grades K to 5, automatic summer school invitations will be going out. Actually, some have already gone out to students who are already receiving tier 2 interventions or who are being serviced in our ELL population. So that usually is around 80 to 90 students who are actually more than that, but we usually get around 80 to 90 students in that summer program. It will be 3 weeks long, and we're actually fully staffed already, which is really exciting. It's a half-day program, and students do get 2 meals there. We're working with the Y to provide the lunch, and then we provide the breakfast, and we also do provide transportation. So that's really exciting. With our 6th through 8th program, we're going to do the same model we did last summer, where we're partnering with Midcoast Youth Center with our 6th through 8th grade students being able to opt in from, and this would be students who are 5th graduating to 6th. So we'll have some overlap, which will be good for transitions. July 11th through August 19th. So this is actually a longer program, which is good to get some of our students who really need some positive outlets to be involved in the summer. It's for all Woolwich and Bath students. So any student, even though it's based at NYC and BMS, it's for any student in 6th through 8th grade. Again, students will receive food for the program, and I believe that hiring is still happening for that if anybody's listening and looking for a summer job. For high school, we're going to be running a similar summer program to last year, where it is full courses that can be taken for credit in the morning session, and then the afternoon session, it's remediation. Leslie Trundy will be leading that again, and it is 5 weeks starting the last week in June through July. Again, food will be served through the Y, and we will also provide transportation for students if needed. We will have in all of these programs nursing support. I have nurses set up to be on call for the mornings for all the weeks. I have 2 open slots still, but I have someone who I think is interested, so that's great. So we'll have medical coverage for that. And we also have hired a van driver who's going to pick up the food at the Y and deliver everything. The other piece that's going on also on the board is the extended school year program for students who have that written into their IEPs. So concurrently, while all of this intervention support and credit recovery is happening, we also have extended school year, and that's actually taking place for 4 weeks. Transportation is provided, food is provided, and it's in 5 different locations. We'll be servicing life skills, behavior room, and resource room students who have extended school year written into their IEPs. So I just wanted you to know that there's a lot of work going into some really exciting planning for our students for the summer. And this will be a big chunk of the federal funds for this year and for next year, so we can make sure we're continuing to make gains from some skills that were lost during the pandemic. Questions?
Fantastic. Questions, Jennifer?
Katie, you did mention, is transport available to Woolwich kids to come over to the summer, to the?
Yeah, transportation's available for anybody to get to the programs.
Thank you.
That's great. Other questions? Sounds like great programs. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had a small group at our last meeting. Dave, are you out there? Dave, you asleep? It's all right, I'll start. So Dave gave an update on the projects, the Dyke Newell work, and then also Woolwich, and those should both be done this summer. And then it's the Phippsburg roof project that could end up actually going into the following summer just because of the materials, supplies, and some of the work that needs to be done, just because of it's really slow right now. So we went through those projects. We just had a recent project done at Fisher Mitchell where we had some bathroom repair work that we had to do that was finished over the break. And also during the break, we started some window testing at the high school in one room. And that will be continued, that testing through the summer as well at the new Morse High School in Bath Tech. Then we did, I know I sent this to the board, but we were able to touch base with the state Department of Education. And this is all kind of estimates. But as you know, we're number 22 on the list right now for Fisher Mitchell for a new school. And what we were told was in 2023, possibly, that they would redo the application process. So we have an application in, we're number 22, that by reopening that application process, it could either help us or hurt us. We don't know. And again, it could be 2023, 2024 that we have to resubmit that application. And the whole premise behind this is if we're going to do this, we would combine the two schools and have a pre-K to 5 school. But if that application process goes as they think it might, the top schools, which might be the top 5 or 6, it's hard to tell, might get approved around 2024, 2025. And then you know how long it took us to build this school, another 3 to 5 years. It could be late 2020s or even 2030, if you're at the top of that list. And so I did send the board, more information will come from the DOE, once they decide when they're going to reopen this application process. But I did reach out to LaValle Brensinger, who was our architectural firm that did this school. And I sent the board something that is just something that the facilities committee needs to discuss in more depth and then eventually have a full board discussion. But it really was kind of a beginning stage of some information gathering of what we need for a new elementary school, what our sites are at right now. Could we build a new school on one of our sites? That's the first thing we have to determine. Then secondly, we have to do some programming and visioning. That would include the principals, it would include the staff, it would include the community. And then eventually an architectural firm, it doesn't have to be LaValle, would do some renderings, some drawings of a potential pre-K to 5 school so that everybody could look at that. So that's kind of a precursor study with a price tag that if we're going to do this, that work has to be done no matter what. But the real question is going to be does the board and does the community support doing this without state funding because we don't feel we can wait? Or is it something that, that there is not support for and we need to, wait for state funding? So you have that information. I think what we're going to plan to do is have the facilities committee get back together, review this document, maybe have a conference call with LaValle is just there's no commitment there, and then bring it to the full board for a full discussion about next steps. So that's really, and the last thing was just the custodial piece contract for next year. Right now we're analyzing cost, services, needs that we have. And before we can determine what we think is the best next step. And once we get to that point where we think we have maybe a recommendation of next step, we would bring it to the board for the board to have a discussion. And ultimately, we would make a decision together about what direction we would go in. Dave, are you alive? No? All right. So any questions you have about facilities?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're a little late. Just kidding.
Headset's not working.
All right. Anything else you wanted to add to the projects, Dave, though? I mostly was focused on Dyke Newell, Woolwich, and Phippsburg. 2 will be done this summer and 1 might not be done till next summer, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions you have for Dave or me? No? Okay. Thank you.
It's pretty thorough. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. Student board report, Jonah and Natalie.
So there wasn't a ton that happened this month, my recollection. There was Mrs. Lee in the library worked with a group of students to bring presenter Crystal Williams, who's a lawyer and entrepreneur in Portland, to present at the school, and she had a workshop on diversity in the community that was very, very good. And I think there's some pretty cool ideas that came from that. And I think this coming month, there's going to be a chance for the AP research students to share their presentations and year-long studies to the public at the Academic Awards Night, if anybody's interested. I think that's late May.
Other notes, it's exam season, finals for most people, APs for some people. On the senior end of things, a lot of people have made their commitments because the decision deadline, I believe, is this Saturday. So if, yeah, that's time's running out for people, I guess, no pressure. Something I know we've talked a lot about the unified programs here, and something I've been noticing recently is those programs are really on display for everyone. Like no matter where you go in the school, you see unified lunch sessions or literacy or phys ed. I think it sets a pretty good example. So that's really been a worthwhile investment, I think. And not to get braggadocious, but I was very fortunate to be a part of the high school quiz show team for the school. Yeah, we went on Maine Public and got a long overdue victory against Brunswick. We thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We are going back for the quarterfinals, but we haven't heard from the studio yet. So more. We think maybe Brewer. We're not sure, but yeah, they're good. All right, that's all from me.
All right, any questions for the students and their report? Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on. Superintendent's report.
Yeah, as Jonah just mentioned, the Unified Literacy Program, after the last board meeting, I mean, I've seen it in action in certain places, but I hadn't seen the piece where our students are going into our early childhood program and reading to students, and to see our high school early childhood students, to see the little ones, and then to see the students in our unified program all like kind of sitting, in individual kind of groups and just reading to each other is, it's probably one of the most rewarding and refreshing things to watch, the dynamics and just the appreciation that students have for each other. And again, I just would like to thank Dawn, Lee, Jonathan Fisk, and Gretchen Parlin for doing that, and for our special ed department in general across the district of doing a lot of good things. Appreciate that. Woolwich School sent 2 Odyssey of the Mind teams to the state tournament this year, and congratulations to both teams for their participation, and also especially the 5th grade team placed 2nd and will be heading to the world competition in Iowa at the end of May. Jazz Night was held on April 6th, and students put on a great night of choral performances, jazz band, as well as rock ensemble and musical theater group. And just lastly, spring athletics are in full swing. We've got games going on this evening, and it's nice to have the weather and the students out and competing. And that's it.
Thanks, Patrick. I had a question for Odyssey of the Mind, because I know we've had teams go to the world in the past, right? How are they funding that? Because I know it's always expensive.
Yeah, it's something that has always been, since I've been here, to my knowledge, it's always been funded, through local fundraising efforts. I know that we've had teams in the past or advisors, come to the board and, talk about it so that it gets the word out to organizations. And I know we've had community organizations that have helped fund that. It's not something it's not a budget item that is, put into our budget to help teams do that. No.
So it's always good enough.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. And it's just good to know that I'm sure they are raising money for that. Deb, in the financial report.
Hey, can you hear me? You hear me
Yep.
good, right?
We can hear you.
So tonight we're looking at the month of March, the 9th month. So we're nearing the end. Out of our $38 million budget, we've spent 72%. It shows after the encumbrances, a percent remaining of about 6.2%. Compared to last year, Last year was like 10% at this point in time. So I have to tell you that I'm a little concerned with spending. Basically, it's the energy costs that we just weren't planning, and we weren't planning as much for operating the high school. So Patrick has asked the administrators to be cautious on anything that they approve for future spending. We haven't put a total freeze on yet, but we have asked them to be cautious because we're not anywhere close to having the fund balance that we did last year. So operation and maintenance, transportation, those are the big areas that we're going to be a little short. Revenues coming in as planned, and then our federal funds working against the ESSER1 and the ESSER2, and making those plans for the staffing for the ARP the following 2 years. So, and that's really it. Morse High School, there hasn't been much activity. We're still have about 400,000 left there. So that's it.
Thanks, Deb. Any questions for Deb? I just wanted, so energy is the real kind of the thing, just unknown.
It's the real driver. I mean, we like propane, for instance. I
Right.
mean, we didn't bid out high enough volume of what it's costing to operate this school. We operated Morse High School for almost the whole year, whereas we originally thought that we were going to hand over the
Right.
keys to the city in September. So that's happening. And same way with fuel, because we bid out a certain number of gallons and then we've had to heat
Use
the
it up,
high
yeah.
school. So now we're at paying, the going rate versus the bid price. Same way with propane. So those kind of things.
So it was a combination. It's not just the rate. It's a combination of that. Well, one, we didn't know we were holding on to the old school as long as we did. And,
Right.
and the propane, and being a new school, we didn't know, we're still learning just how much it's costing and
and the electricity as well.
Right.
So
well,
those
and that
three
rate went up. Sure.
factors,
Okay.
Combined. Yeah.
And so with what you know now, because we're going to move, it's a good segue, we're going to move into talking about the budget. Knowing what you know now, do you think we have a better handle for the budget for next year? And what, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
and
still a
that's
lot, there's
why
still a
it's-
lot of unknowns, but
There is, but that's why the budget has increased in those areas.
Right.
Because we know that, we're going to use probably 30 gallons of,
Right,
30,000 of propane versus, what we had planned, like 15.
Right,
And those
exactly.
types of things. So we're just, trying to.
so you feel like to the
Work
best
it
of
out.
your knowledge now, you've put in what's needed for next year
Yeah,
for that stuff. Okay.
hopefully.
Yeah. Well, no, I
long
mean,
as,
it's it's still, you never
Long
know,
as
but
the oil doesn't keep going
right.
further and further up. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Great. Thank you.
yeah, Natalie?
Right. How significantly are the current prices, oil prices and fuel prices going to affect the budget next year?
Well, I budgeted a higher amount per gallon versus what we had basically had out to bid for this current year. So that amount is included in the proposed budget. Same way with propane. Both of those commodities were less last year as far as bid price. So I'll go out to bid again at probably towards the end of June, and hopefully maybe by then and in a month or so, things might have stabilized a little bit. But I think that there's enough, I've budgeted enough per gallon and to cover, the use. So it's a combination of the prices and the usage. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right. There's any other old business? We're good. Okay. Moving right along. So under new business, we have the public forum to discuss the budget. We don't have a lot of the public, but we need to talk about the budget anyway. I guess if we should have put masks or something on the agenda, it would have gotten people out. but I'm just not sure why pocketbook things don't get people to come out. So let's have some fun with the budget. What we got was, I want to thank Deb and Patrick for putting this stuff together. A few different scenarios. I wanted to have a few different scenarios for everybody to look at, and I hope you had a chance to do that, because, we've talked about it before with all the different positions, some we want to hold on to. We don't know what the federal funding will be in the next couple of years, just to have a better idea of what can we reasonably add on if we need to add on, what can we reasonably fund going forward, kind of with a little bit of a look to, multiple years, and just looking at a few different scenarios to see what the true percentages are, and to recognize that with all the pricing going up everywhere, we can't just keep everything down to a minimum and think that's going to solve the problem. And we also don't want to come in at 7%. So it's like, where in between there do we think the public is, going to say this is reasonable? We're doing everything we can to maintain, to handle the ongoing results of the pandemic, which is a lot of social, emotional, mental health issues, as well as Leslie Glump said so eloquently about, really helping these kids catch up now, and as Katie says, with the summer program, all these things we're putting into place to make sure that those who did fall behind academically are being taken care of as well. So I want to look at that as well. I also, I don't think we handed out copies, but Patrick had emailed the board what expenses were cut by each of the admin, the non-labor. And I want to talk a little bit about some of those too. I know I have some questions about that, because the only scenario that isn't in here was, I think we ended up cutting 140, it was like 140,000 total. However, when we first talked and had said, let's add 100,000, remember we talked about one position for the high school, and we said, let's cut 100,000, because that would have kept it at 3.24%. But what came in were cuts that were 140,000. Not saying it's wrong. I'm just trying to play with the numbers so we can see what our options are. And by cutting the 140, it went to 3.03%. So, I have some questions for the admin team, just because in the same way that I'm looking at positions, and we want to make sure we're adding positions we need to, we want to be reasonable, but want to make sure we're adding the positions we need. I also want to make sure that I understand some of the cuts, and are those cuts we can really live with, because I'd rather add some more money back in now and know that you're good, versus finding out in November that we should have put them back in. So I just want to, so for me anyway, it's a lot of it's clarity, and I'm not questioning anybody's judgment. I just want to know what some of it means. And if it's all good, it's all good. If we can add a little bit back in and still get some positions, great. But I just want to understand some of this, because I know, this is a strange year with supply chains, and it's a strange year with just trying to get everything we need. So with that, I want to open it to the board. If anyone had some specific questions about some of these scenarios and what we think are reasonable percentages, if any of these look really good to you or, seem in excess, now's a good time to speak up. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, I keep coughing.
No, it's all right. You okay?
Yeah.
All right.
It's just, so I think, so I numbered them as 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
And so the number 3, with adding in the $200,000, that doubles, even though it's very low, it doubles the percentage increase for Woolwich. And that's not something that I think that we were expecting to happen. I know that we're having our town meeting on our budget this week or the next week. So that was my surprise. And so I don't know how to explain how that doubles, and also that we still have $4 million sitting in one of our federal funds. So that's going to be a hard thing for me to explain. Why to, the average person, why we still have a big, huge federal funding option And we've doubled the percentage, even though it's a very low percentage, and I know it's lowest in the district, it's still a big change. So I would need some help in understanding and explaining that. I think if that's the way the rest of the board wants to go, just my observation. For
Okay,
right now.
no, that's great. That's why that's why I wanted all the scenarios out there. I'm not personally leaning from one to the other. It's just after we all talked about, well, it's one position, then we said, well, if we're going to need some of these other positions, do we wait it out? Because we can have this conversation next year because it's what's going to happen. Or we find out if there's, maybe some more federal funding will still come in. And that's awesome, but we don't know that for sure. So we're just trying to figure out where, what is because it's hard when you start playing with percentages. I don't know what the actual cost increase is for folks with that kind of small percentage, even though I know you say it's doubled what we first put out there as a draft, and I understand that. Although actually it may not quite be double because do we have the original? The original was 3.24 for the total, so it might not be exact. This one that we changed when we did the additional 100,000 and did the cuts actually came out to a little less, I think, if I'm right. Yeah. Does anyone else have some questions? All right, I have a few. I wanted to, just so I can understand where we are with these cuts. I think Deb, where you have system-wide, the fuel, it's like 25,000 or something. I'm just not sure if we were adding in, how can we cut fuel? Or how do we show?
I had originally put $4.50 in for a price per gallon, and I've reduced that to $4 per gallon.
Oh, I see. So what was originally in there was at a 450 rate, and now you're
Right.
thinking it's going to be more like 4?
I'm hoping.
You're hoping, okay, you're
Yeah.
hoping. So that savings is a hope. Got it. All right. Let's see. And I wanted to ask, okay, that makes sense. Thank you. And for, on Morse, I'm just looking at some of these big numbers. If I'm right, are the books and periodicals, it's like 19,000. I mean, that doesn't mean we're not getting books and periodicals, right? It's just that, was it such a big ask that you were able to?
Yeah, reduced by 19,000. I believe I still have north of 30,000 in books and periodicals for next year.
Okay. All right. So that was in excess of, right?
Yeah.
And when you
that was out of a preliminary request,
Right. It was preliminary, which when you came down to it, you said, well, we still have enough to do.
Yeah.
But it's.
It would be nice to have that.
Right.
Total.
Well, right. Yeah. If we could do it, but that's just not where we're at. Okay. And when you talk about supplies at 14,200, what kind of stuff does that cover? I mean, are these things we really, and again, I'm not questioning your judgment. I'm just asking for clarity.
Yeah. I mean, so I could give examples of, it could be supplies that are the everyday usage of things like in a science lab that get used up every day. Math, it could be things that wear out over time, like calculators that we'll provide for kids. We still buy them, but every year we try to replenish, and maybe we can only replenish 2 classes versus,
I see,
versus more than that. PE has a certain level of supplies, so it's kind of it's all over the place in terms of what I reduced out of that. Supplies even at the in the administrative offices,
right.
Post-its.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
I think that's all questions I had from Morris. For BRCTC, your big number there is supplies for electrical. I think I remember during the budget, you were talking about how things had gone up so much. So I wasn't sure. Did you get a better price or were
No, this is just, I needed to make cuts and I'm hopeful that we find money somewhere else. The MACD group advocated pretty hard for 3.2 million extra in the governor's budget, but it didn't end up in appropriations. It ended up at like 1.7. We have no idea how it's going to be divvied out.
When will you know that?
When the department, the DOE is working on it right now. And so I'll have a meeting with the state probably next week about how that will get divvied out. So right now, we pretty much have very little increase in supplies. Like we took out the increase in supplies for culinary. We'll just try to find a way to make it up. I don't know how we'll do electricity. We'll just do our best.
Because you have a full electric, according to your report,
we're
right?
anticipating 32 students next year. Right now, the prices are doubled for everything for that. They're increased at least a third for all carpentry, and we're not increasing supplies for carpentry either. So we're hopeful they go down.
Okay. All right. Thanks for explaining that. Appreciate it. Trying to think, there was another question I had. Some of these seem pretty straightforward, but and Dean, for technology for the hotspots, that reduction, is that because we're not needing as many now, that you felt comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's our hope, is that we won't need them because we won't be doing remote instruction next year.
Right.
And that the ECF grants, we're hoping that they get expanded into the next year.
Okay. Okay. Like I said, I'm just trying to understand some of these big numbers. So if you can all live with them, then I can live with them. And I don't see, is Jen here for Dyke Newell? No. Is she online? Jen, are you there on the line? Dyke Newell?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I was just with the stuff that you reduced, I was just trying to understand some of your equipment and stuff. Is this stuff that is still working but you'd like to repair it, or is some of this stuff just like you're without it if you don't repair it?
So for example, we have a laminator that's pretty heavily used. It costs about $2,000 for a new laminator. We've been needing it for a few years now. So we have put it in the budget for next year. It was one of the things that I took out when I was asked to find some reductions. I reduced some staff professional development and some additional equipment. We were looking for some furniture pieces, computer storage carts and things like that. We were able to purchase some of them ahead or get some funding through like Donors Choose. And get some of the items that we were planning to get. But the laminator's a couple thousand and the staff PD was a couple thousand, and that's the bulk of where I made those cuts.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
Absolutely.
All right. Does anyone else have questions about some of the cuts? Yeah, go ahead, Meg.
I was just wondering if there were any reductions at Fitchburg, because I don't see it.
Yeah, sorry, here it's right.
On my list, I don't.
No, actually, I don't see it on the list. No, I guess there weren't. Must have been, were there any? I don't see any on here.
Did you, yeah, I think it was only, it might have been very small, under $100 increase or whatever it was, but.
Okay. Jamie?
I don't think I have a question. I think I just have a concern listening to Julie about if she hasn't been able to increase anything for materials, knowing that electricity and carpentry supplies are one of the things that are the most expensive right now. I think it worries me that she's trying to figure it out without our support. I think that would just be my concern.
I do have a small increase. I think I increased like $4,000 in electrical, but I anticipate it's going to cost more.
Anita, did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is a concern. Yeah, I'm concerned about a few of the things. So I guess so in looking at this, the number, like I said, what I kept getting in my head was why it ended up being 140,000 when originally we all seemed fine with that initial 3.24%, which was the 100,000 reduction in order to bring 100,000 in for that one position. which would mean we could put 40,000 back in because that was not a bad number, the 3.24. Everyone seemed fine with that. Unless I'm missing something. I mean, that seemed to be, so we could allow, you know, maybe you can put a little bit more back in electrical or get an equipment at Dyke Newell or a few more supplies at Morris. I don't know. You'd have to all figure it out what's fair. But Jen, go ahead.
I think what you said was critical, is that, you know, you'd have to look at how you would distribute that across the whole district.
Yeah, no, you would. Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm not gonna, you know, they're the experts. They're coming up with it. I'm not telling them how to do it. I'm just saying that if we're looking at the numbers and people were fine with that 3.24, which was original, I mean, you know, we didn't ask for it to be reduced even more. It's great. I mean, if everyone wants to live with it, that's fine. My bigger concern is that because supplies have gone up, whether it's for any of the schools, because all that's gone up, because fuel's gone up, because all these different things, trying to go with a complete minimal, I don't think is ultimately going to work, because then we're going to be having a more difficult discussion next year saying, well, now we have to, I mean, I'd rather incrementally do this over the next 3 years than say, oh, let's keep it super, super low. And then next year we have to have a conversation that says, oh, now we have to raise it to 5%. I don't want to do that. And if things change and the economy's better and inflation is down, then we won't have to either. But again, I'm not trying to say, I don't think the 200,000 is realistic necessarily. I'm not saying that's what we should go for. We just wanted to put it in because we have to decide as a board how many positions, you know, two things. One, do you want to put some more money back into the supplies and then ask them to go back together and work with Patrick to say, okay, how do we equally put some stuff back, you know, whatever the percentages are, and where it makes sense, so they get a little bit something back, which helps. And then the second thing being, we have these scenarios which have, you know, one added position, two added positions, and was ultimately 3, right, Patrick? With the 200,000?
Yeah, I mean, the thought process, as I talked to Lou and Lorna about this, was, you know, the first one that you have is 3.03.
Mhm.
That includes the dean of students at the high school, and that's it. And then if you added 100,000 in, again, we weren't talking at that point about doing anything with non-labor, that adding that additional 100,000 on the second page would be, in addition to the dean of students, it would be the RTI coordinator for the system. And then the 200,000, again, purely looking at labor, would be adding a social worker. I would just say a district social worker. It doesn't matter what level at this point, you know, into the budget, so that, again, when the ARP money runs out, that, you know, we're ahead of the game. So that was the reason, or the rationale behind just putting out 3 scenarios.
So, yeah, go ahead, Natalie.
I was just wondering, what will the role of the new dean of students at Morse be?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What will the new dean of students do? What will their role be?
This position would be primarily dealing with discipline and with student needs on a day-to-day basis at Morse. Yep.
Did you, Katie? Sorry.
I just because I don't know if everybody in the audience has the same sheets that you have. So the dean of students was 3.03. With RTI, it was what, Patrick?
With RTI, it was 3.55,
Uh,
and then it was
social worker.
4.07 local and 3.81 for total expenses.
Thank you.
So I think yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I apologize if I missed this, but so this is putting those positions in the budget versus paying for them with the ESSER 3 money, right?
Right.
Okay, so if we can, do we have enough money, and can we pay for all those two extra positions with ESSER money and leave us at 3.03?
We can, they're in there right now. Again, it was putting the scenarios out there for, kind of a sustainability kind of question because, I think obviously Dean of Students, RTI and social work were, right at the top of the list as far as needs go. So then in 2024, when this money runs, possibly runs out, it's just kind of, I don't want to say softening the blow, but trying to, again, just talk about sustainability with some of these positions. That's why the reason for the scenarios.
Right, because what part of it, if you recall, was folks started questioning. So just as an example, so if you said, okay, the RTI position is funded with the ESSER fund, well, are you going to get the same kind of candidate if you're telling them, well, it's good for a year or it's good for 2 years, but we don't know after that, versus saying it's already built into the budget. Maybe it'll be a difference, maybe it won't. That was just how some of this germinated, and then said, well, what do the numbers look like? Let's just look at the numbers. We don't have to do it, but let's look at the numbers. I think, I could be wrong, but I'm gathering that there's either that there's probably support for the adding the Dean of Students, and I would support putting back in 40,000 to the supplies, which would bring us back to that 3.24, which was the original percent we had. That's what I'd be for at least that. I'm open to discussing certainly any of it, but if folks feel very strongly about the RTI, or you go, because the RTI, that would be funded for 2 more years. Is that right?
Yeah, the plan is to have it for 2 years, and again, then it would be either we have to find a funding mechanism at that point, or it's gone after 2 years, which is not good for the system.
Exactly. So then you look at it as, do you want to push? It's really about pushing it down the road. So you want to say, if what we really want, if we support the RTI position, do you put it in the budget now, and turn this into, well, this is 3.55. It would be a little higher if we put supplies back in. Do we do that, or do you want to at least go for the next year, put it in ESSER, and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go with this 3.24 this year. We're going to put the RTI position in, but we're going to put it in ESSER, and we have the discussion next year and see where we're at. Things could be very different as far as federal funding. A whole lot can change, as you know, depending on who gets in. And we could say, hey, now we're dealing with, we're getting more money to help with social emotional, or we're not getting any money, and now we have to go to figure out what we're doing. But I don't think there's a wrong answer. It's just a matter of whether you think we can handle a little bit more of a burden now, or say we're going to do a little bit. We're adding 1 position. We'll put a little bit of the supplies back. We get 3.24 and we move on, and we monitor and see where we're at after next year. And then we decide whether we're folding anything into the direct budget or not.
I think one of the impacts could be, the issue of, what a recession or inflationary prices are doing to people's budgets right now, and it's a pretty high spike right now. So deferring the payments this year would help people get over this initial thing, and hopefully the economy will rebound. People have more money. Addressing that budgetary issue in the future is one thing. It's also, it's hard to explain to people when they ask me, if you have a big pile of money, just like when we used to have a lot of money, excuse me, in our carryover budget, when people are experiencing financial crisis and we have a big savings account, they're like, why are you coming to us for more? Why not use what you have? And I know it's probably a very fundamental way of looking at it, but for people who aren't involved in this process all the time, I think that's part of it. So I appreciate, the prospect of putting the $40,000 back into the supply budget. I think looking at one of these positions in funding them through the ESSER funds now might make sense. I don't know if I just couldn't support putting both of them in the budget right now, given the impact of what the economy is for our taxpayers, and also knowing we do have some funds. A two-year assignment is better than a 1-year assignment. That definitely helps a lot. And I do know that people want, but if someone comes into the district They don't have a guarantee of a job for 2 years because they're on probation. So each year they have to, be able to do something to be able to have that. So it's not like it's a guaranteed job security either with that. But I mean, I believe in the positions. I'm just worried about the impact right now.
That's good. That's fair. I appreciate it. Any other, Natalie?
This is probably a very basic question, but I'm not familiar with budgets. Is the majority of funding coming from taxpayers and is raising taxes the only way to increase the budget?
You want to answer it?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have to make one comment.
Yeah.
Any more that we add to this current budget is going to put, and I know they have more students, but it's going to put Pittsburgh over 10%. And I just worry about that. That's just my comment.
When we were at 3.2 something percent, we were at over 10%?
Yes.
Okay.
Now we're at 9.98.
So is that why we cut even more stuff? Was that the reasoning?
I mean, a little bit, yeah. I mean, we basically looked at each administrator's request and put it down to a more reasonable.
Right. No, I'm not
They're
saying.
all receiving more money in their budget.
Right. I'm not saying that it's not reasonable. I'm just trying to balance it.
Totally up to you.
And I totally agree with what Deb just said. We try to be cognizant of that. At the same time, just again, another just factual data point is at the bottom of your budget sheet. Pittsburgh does have the lowest average increase from 16, 17
Right.
to 22 to 23. Again, but it is
And they've
hard.
got- but
it's hard when you have 1 year that's really high. So I get it.
But it's percentage. It's not necessarily, I mean, the numbers, I don't know how much more someone's going to be paying. I mean, it's, yeah, I get it. I understand. You look at percentages and they're scary sometimes, but you're right. They've had the lowest. They just have more kids now. So you're paying because of the kids, not because we're just charging you more for the heck of it. Okay. So I guess what I need to hear from the board is, what do you think there is support for? Because we do need to kind of decide on some kind of, because what do we have? Is it next week?
Yeah, ideally you would vote next Monday for you to approve the budget from the board perspective, sign warrants, and then we have our district budget meeting at the end of May. So it'd be nice to know a direction. Doesn't have to be concrete, but then Deb in our business office does kind of create the warrants so that
Right.
we're ready to sign them next Monday. But we can create a couple different versions if we need to.
Okay. And then we can have the final discussion and make a decision on Monday. So, yeah, Katie? Oh, sorry, Jen, you didn't see. Go ahead.
I
Jen.
just wanted to ask so Pittsburgh received the original 3.24 budget at some point, the draft.
Yeah.
Have they reached out at all about that?
Good point. Anybody else? Go ahead, Katie.
I just want to add back into the mix, just because it's probably my last chance, that, I think you were all really excited to hear what Leslie had to share, and to hear the academic progress we've started to really be able to gain ground on. I just wanted to remind the board of how essential the RTI position would truly be to making that happen. These gains happen across all content areas, K through 8. And I think the worry, Lou stated it, of putting in ESSER is yes, right now it's in there. However, it will potentially be hard to find someone who wants a role that may or may not be for 1 or 2 years. And it would also be very difficult to create new systems to help oversee academic progress, assessment of IEPs, making sure that kids who are intervention are fully being followed through on, or different programs are being found for them. So we really are closing gaps. So someone's overseeing all of those details. To create that and then have it go away after a year or two, it would just be kind of pointless. And I think really hard. And so I fully respect whatever you decide. I just want to remind everybody that if we create it, and we hire someone, that it will still cost $100,000 in a year, and it'll still be needed greatly.
Okay. Thank you. So there's a couple ways to look at that. One is obviously that way and say, okay, put it in now. Or going back to what Jennifer said, if we are in a place where, everything else has gone up so much, so quickly, so fast, then if the board has a general intent to say we support the RTI, we're good putting it in ESSER funds for a year with the intent that that would be the first priority for next year to put into a normal budget. That's 2 years. If I would say we could do it next year, depending on where we're at, or you could wait 2 years, but there's going to be other stuff we may want to incorporate in 2 years. So I'm just saying that if we're doing a position a year for the next couple of years till we figure out where we're at.
Because just a reminder
Go
that
ahead.
in 2 years, all the extra social work we've added also is gone.
Right. No, I understand that. That's why
So,
I'm saying,
yeah.
so that's why I'm just saying it would be that perhaps one way to look at it is we say, we're going to do this RTI with the ESSER funds this year because we are going to build this. We believe in it. We're not sure we want the spike. It's debatable whether it's a spike, the taxes, but if that's how folks are feeling, then you could say, but that's going to be our priority moving into next year. And we'll see, because we'll have a better idea. I mean, let's face it, we're going to get into the midterms, or then you're by 24, you're coming up with presidential. Depending on who's in power in DC, it's going to tell you a lot as to whether the social emotional is going to be supported on certain levels, and see where the country is at that point. So we just don't know whether that'll continue or if it all just goes away. But I'm just saying that's one way to look at it. And when you hire someone, I mean, you have to say the board really wants this RTI. I think it's more a matter of, are we funding it this year or next year or the year after? But yes, it does push other positions back, or it's a bigger spike next year, which you're saying, well, maybe the economy is better next year and you can have a slightly larger spike. I don't know. So there's just a couple different ways to look at it. So what I think need to decide tonight is maybe on 2 possible scenarios that Deb could work up so that we could look at it and make a final decision next Monday. That would be my recommendation, but Jamie, go ahead.
I guess my concern would be, we've talked about next year. What about BMS and their need for an SRO? And reading this month's report from Bath Middle School further supports that need. So I guess my concern with keeping the RTI and the ESSER funding is we keep it on the chopping block. We can say this year, yes, we believe in this position, but then next year, is it an RTI or an SRO? So I guess, to me, if we as a district believe that we need an RTI position, we need to fund that position versus just putting it again aside. To me, it just seems like, are we making a commitment for the RTI, or are we going to just push it along and then next year be sitting here talking about, we need social work, we need an SRO at BMS, we need the RTI position?
Well, we are going to be talking about social work, because I don't want to speak for Brandon, but he said obviously that second counselors, he told me, he's making a big difference. So, and that's ESSER, right, Brandon? That's ESSER funding. So is that 2 more years, that one? Or that's 2 more years? Okay. So yeah, so we are going to be having that conversation. I mean, none of this avoids the conversation, but I have to agree with Katie that if we're going to fund RTI with ESSER, it has to become a priority to begin in the regular budget ultimately, because it is a waste of money to build the infrastructure and then go, yeah, that was great, goodbye. We can't do that. So I'm just saying that's something the board, I think, really has to face. Go ahead, Anita.
We started building the foundations of the RTI program 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, and it's been something that has we've committed to it, to grow it and see it expand to this point. And I think we need to stick to our guns with that.
Some version, thank you for saying that. And again, I'm going to stop after this, but some version of this position has been the thing we're going to do the next year for 3 years now.
Go ahead, Neil.
What is the RTI position? Sorry.
No, it's okay. You want to, Katie, can you reiterate?
Sure. So it's a position that will overlap between special ed and intervention to oversee all of the programs, curriculum, and services that students get and receive, and how the quality of our interventions overall for students K-8. So someone who kind of oversees the whole process, ensures if interventions aren't working, that students are being moved along appropriately for an IEP referral. If students are making slight progress but not enough, it would be a coach for interventionists to have someone they could ask for different suggestions for curriculum. It would be someone who would bring potentially new curriculum and also make them more consistent, like we did with Hegarty within our intervention program. It would be someone to look at the data like that Leslie shared with us to find gaps in different instructional approaches, so we could just really hone in and fine tune what our programs are doing that are positive and negative, how our curriculum's impacting kids, and what teachers need help with.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I guess I'm a little confused because I completely believe in the RTI position. I guess I'm just saying let's fund it through the money that we have available right now. And then in the future, when that money's not there, we'll fund it within the budget. Like I don't not believe in it. I believe we should absolutely need it. And I'm really glad that we have a funding stream for that right now. I don't feel like funding it through one pot of money or the other means that we do or do not believe in it. I think that we're just using the resources that we have right now to the best of our abilities. But maybe I'm confused with something and I don't see something. I don't know. I mean, I strongly believe in it.
No, I think I understand your point in using the money we have, and I'm not against it. I think the real discussion we keep having is that because there's so many unknowns, that if we have to maintain some of these other positions that are going to run out, do you add just a little bit more now, or are we going to have to add a whole lot more later if we want to maintain those things, or we let go of positions? And I think that's really the what we keep balancing here is do you want to go 3.03%, 3.24? Do you want to go all the way up to 3.81? What's the percentage? And yes, it affects, in one scenario, it doubles a very small percent increase for Woolwich, but it might be better to do that now than to have it go up 3 times next year, or the year after. I'm just saying that's really all it is. It's not a right or wrong. It's not a whether you believe in it or not, because I think the fact that now we're talking about creating the RTI position because we have the funding, that's fine. Let's do it. I'm just saying it's a matter of whether you're kind of kicking some of this down the road, and because ultimately we're gonna have to make some very hard decisions. And if you're incrementally increasing, it's usually easier for people to deal with. What's different about this year? It's unprecedented in its inflation, in the bizarre economy, and the fact that you go to the store and grocery store and things are up $1 and $3. Bread is like ridiculous right
50%
now.
increases. Yeah.
50%. Yeah, exactly. So that's really what it's about. I don't think anyone's, well, at least I'm not speaking for anyone else. I'm not questioning what you're saying. I think that's the issue.
Yeah, and I just think that it is which, speaking for the people who, elected me to be here, I think it is we have a small increase, but historically, if you look at the average, we're the highest increase. So and it's all percentages, but if you kind of get away from that and you just look at the fundamental thing is that we have money to fund this position that we desperately need, and we're going to fund it. It's not a question that it's going to get funded. It's going to get funded one way or the other, right? if I understand correctly, either in the budget or through.
Yeah,
ESSER.
right now it is, right?
So there's
It's
no
already
question
in,
that we're
it's already
not.
in the budget. It's just under ESSER right now. Yeah, yeah,
So
it's
there's-
in there now.
So it's our priority. We are committed to this. We are committed to making sure it happens. You know, we're going to use the pot of money that we have in front of us now, and hopefully in 2 years, inflation goes down. And also too, like as we go through further and further away from COVID, I'm hoping with all these resources that we're putting to COVID, my hope is that we're not going to have the same need that we have this year when we get to the end of this funding, because we've spent this money really wisely and we've created so many good resources. I'm hoping that our need, our student needs,
Right.
our community needs, everything is different as we emerge out of COVID. So maybe this, you know, huge part of social workers, maybe we don't, you know, maybe that need changes.
Right,
Or
it
all
may,
these needs
it may.
changes.
There's a lot of unknowns.
I know that there is a need right now to get us back to where we were. And I know that there's this RTI need that is really very helpful to keeping kids not, you know, not graduating into special ed or being able to, you know, maintain where they're at. And I completely believe in that. So, you know, I'm glad that our RTI money, that kind of RTI money that's come through Title I, I was really glad that that's going to kind of stay there, so that didn't get cut. And I know I'm just trying to balance out how we do it now. Not to
Right,
take that.
right. I understand. Thank you. Patrick, let me just ask you that third position added in. What was the social worker? What specifically was that one? And is
Yeah,
that
it's,
being funded?
again, it's just, yeah, we have additional social work at all of our schools. Some are part-time. We haven't been able to find one shared between Phippsburg and Fisher Mitchell. But we do have we added some part-time and full-time to all of our schools right now. And, you know, Jen makes a good point. I mean, the need may not be as great 2 years from now, but I mean, what we're seeing, I mean, we've filled all of the, you know, the new social workers, we filled their role, you know, their caseload just like that. So that's why I didn't assign it to a certain school, but we've got, I don't know, Deb, 4 or 5 in there.
So is that one not a new position? It would be adding a position we're currently funding with ESSER funds into the.
Right, just like the
So it's not a new,
RTI.
right, it's like the RTI. So it would be one we're currently funding under ESSER. We just say, okay, if we want to front end some of this, so it's not such a shocker later, that's what that one was. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. All right. So now that everyone's thoroughly confused, what do you all think in terms of a couple scenarios that we can have available for next Monday? What do you want to support? Is there anything that's outstanding in your, I mean, it sounds like, Jen, you are for one position, the Dean of Students position, funding the well, we're already funding the RTI and that social work through ESSER, maintaining that. Where do you stand on the adding in any of the non-labor back into it, which would only bring it to the original? You're okay with that? Yeah. Okay, you're okay with that. Natalie, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering about the ESSER funds. Am I right in thinking the majority of the positions funded by the funds right now are social work?
It's a combination of extra teachers, extra intervention, extra social workers, and a few ed techs. The ones that will be funded for 1 more year are the extra teachers and ed techs. The 2-year positions would be all of the social workers. I think there are 5. And the RTI position and a credit recovery position for the high school.
Okay, and when the funds run out, will those be the people who are no longer employed, or will other places, will other staff members be displaced?
Their contracts are just for 1 or 2 years.
So, thank you, Katie. So that's where Jen is with hers. What are you thinking, Meg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's either that or that for me.
Which is that and that? What are you pointing at?
Not adding.
Not adding three?
Adding the three.
Okay, but
Yeah.
either adding the one or adding the two?
And the ESSER can only, does it really only cover people, staff? Like we can't use some ESSER for the electrical needs or carpentry needs? I know it's COVID related, but is inflation COVID related?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to balance. I mean, we can put certain things in, but again, we just resubmitted it last week. You know, all of our plans for it.
Okay.
So it can be used for both. I mean, obviously we're using it for some maintenance projects. We're using it for some technology related things, some other instructional things too.
All right.
If that helps.
No, that's fine. We just need to ask, okay, what about the other end? What do you all think? Which scenario two? Which one is that? And are you, okay, and that based on 3.55, that doesn't put any more supplies in, are you good with leaving the supplies where they are, or did you want to?
I don't know. To me, I'm asking, what do the students need? And maybe because I'm new to this, I'm not asking or thinking, I don't know how to say it, but to me, what do the students need for this year? If they need additional supplies, and it's, another $40,000 that we're talking about in the grand scheme of this budget, I would say add it in, but I also would want to fund the RTI and the Dean of Students, so.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment? Anita, Bill?
I would go with funding the RTI and Dean of Students and putting 40 back in. I'd support that.
Thank you. I don't know if we're any further. So there's still a lot to think about. So I guess it sounds like we're not going to come to a decision tonight. We're going to ask, based on what you're saying, I guess I'll ask Deb to do a couple scenarios that if we can have this week, we can all come prepared to have the honest, difficult discussion next Monday. So we don't take any more time because we have other stuff on the board tonight. And make a decision so we can sign warrants. Is that fair, Deb? If I ask you, I'll write it so we can talk after. I'll write a few things down.
I just need your direction to prepare the warrant.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'll have to have, do you want, it sounds, the way I'm getting supported, it's looking like there'd be 3 different scenarios that we'd have to look at. I mean, one would be Dean of Students with the 40 back in. One would be Dean of Students and the RTI by itself, and one would be Dean of Students and RTI with the 40 back in. Does that sound like what we're talking about in terms of looking at? So we can see what those numbers are, take a good hard look at it.
It's either going to be 3.03 or 3.
Well, no, I'm actually saying it would either be, well, you could go with 3.03. That doesn't put supplies back in. That's where we are. There seemed to be some support. And again, it's just what I'm perceiving, to put some money back in that the Patrick and the admin team would work out to help them a little bit.
Yeah.
So that would be the 3.24, which was an original number we had.
Okay, gotcha.
So that'd be one scenario. It's Dean of Students 3.24. Second scenario would be this putting 2 positions in, which we already have. It's the 3.55, and a third
Special education teacher at Phippsburg. The recommended candidate is Melissa Smith. We had 3 applications, interviewed 1, and Melissa is currently in ed tech and also a long-term teaching sub for us. I'm very excited to have to nominate her. The next one is also Missy Cruz is our nomination for middle school math, and she is also a current ed tech at right now at BMS, and we had 6 applications and interviewed 4. And then next at BMS, the grade 7 and 8 social studies, we had 17 applications, interviewed 3, and we're happy to nominate Joseph White, who is currently a middle school teacher in Gardner. And then lastly, music and band teacher, which is a full-time position shared between Fisher Mitchell and Phippsburg. We had 8 applications, interviewed 3 people, and we're happy to nominate Crystal Mishu, who is currently a middle school music teacher in Concord, Massachusetts.
Thank you, Patrick. So do you want to take this all at once? Everybody okay with that? Yes. Okay, so I need a motion. Jennifer?
Move approval.
Okay, and seconded by Meg. Any other questions? No? All in favor? Great, none opposed. It's unanimous. Thank you, great group of candidates. Thank you, Patrick. 12.4.
Yeah, probationary teachers, you have a list in your backup. And again, probationary period is back to 2 years. It has been for a couple of years now. And so you see in that chart that we sent to you, there's actually on the top, the wording on the top should basically just say teachers moving from probationary 1 to 2 and then 2 to continuing contract, because that's all there is now. Remember, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a probationary 3 step in there. So the first half of the sheet up top, they're going from 1 to 2. And then the bottom piece are the ones that we're recommending go from a probationary 2 to a continuing contract.
Okay, any questions on that? Jennifer?
So as I sent the email on Sunday to you guys, I guess I'm curious on how observations have happened and how that process has worked during COVID, specifically for the teachers moving to the continuing contract.
Now, in 2021, we had a minimum of 3 observations for probationary teachers. And that, again, and that year it could have been in person or it could have been remote when they were teaching. So we took that modification through our TPEG group, which is our district made up of teachers and administrators, and they voted on that change because, again, it was what was doable, what was manageable. If principals who are here tonight, if they have a concern about a probationary teacher, then they would do more than 3, but 3 would be the minimum. And then for this year as well, our group, voted on a plan to continue with having 3 at a minimum observations. And it also includes a summative evaluation at the end of a year. That is a compilation of those observations. And again, the observations, in addition to the 3 classroom observations that are written up, it also could be observations that happen in an IEP meeting, a staff presentation, those types of things. So it is a little bit less than what our typical one would be, which would be, around the 5 observations in a year, and because of COVID.
And I didn't see, am I not reading it right? Is there no P3s?
No, because there's no more year 3.
There's no more year 3.
Probationary.
It goes to
2 to
okay.
to
Just it was the way
continuing
it was
Yeah,
phrased
top.
up there.
Yeah,
I
right.
was confused. Okay.
Yes.
That's right. I'm a little slow on the uptake.
No,
All right.
no.
Okay. Any other questions? Can I have Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Patrick, the evaluations happened. Did they happen, who reviews that they not only happened, but they happened in alignment with whatever the protocols are? Do you, I'm probably told me.
Katie and I meet with the administrators on a regular basis as an ad team, but also individually to make sure that those observations are happening. And then the summative evaluation actually comes to central office where Katie and I read those before they go into their file.
So do you see the feedback of all the notes and everything?
I
from the
don't see every
observation?
note on every observation that they do, but we
Right.
do bring those to ad team, have discussions about those. And again, the standards are set, and that's the expectation that we have.
Okay, the expectation is that they're done the way they should be done.
Yes.
Okay. And there's review on that, sporadically, or a few things, or does one observation per administrator get looked at a year? I mean, is it just that's the expectation and you assume it's being done? I guess.
Sometimes we do them together. Sometimes I will look at them. I'll ask for one.
Okay. All right. Just as long as there's some oversight to that process, and I ask these questions because I think when it comes to putting a teacher in a continuing contract, that's our commitment. We're committing to that teacher being here really for as long as they want to be here for most reasons, I think. And so I take that level, something that's really serious. And I know I've said this every year, and I still, we're voting on it, or we have to approve that this process is happening, but we don't see any documentation, we don't see a sample of anything. We don't know except for to assume that the process that should happen is happening. So it's just it feels always strange to me that we have to vote to approve something that we really have had not seen any material on at all.
Well, when we vote on a lot of things, we don't have all that detail too. But I mean, this is some that the standards are held, and they were modified somewhat, obviously, because of COVID, but they were still being done. They got everything approved that they needed to from, was that the DOE? You had to get it approved or something?
No, it's through our committee.
No, I meant, but like with COVID and stuff to modify. I mean, it was kind of a bigger picture, I thought, from your notes. But yeah, I understand. Okay, can I go, Bill?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the probationary teacher list as presented to the board.
Thank you, sir. Anyone, and Jamie, thank you. All in favor? Okay. None opposed. It passes. 12.5 end of year schedule.
Yeah, this is something that, the Department of Education would like the board to vote on. I'm sure in the past I've done it as an FYI to you, but I think, we should do it this way. And so I'm here to answer any questions you might have. I outlined this to you, but right now, based on the number of snow days, we would end on Tuesday, June 21st, which is a half day for us. And so because Juneteenth is on the 19th, which is that Monday, it's on the 19th, but it's going to be observed on Monday, June 20th. So, it's not ideal. Some would say it's not productive to come back on a Tuesday after a long weekend when that's the only day that you would be in session. So, we've been working with West Bath a little bit, Georgetown, because we share students. I know that West Bath has already made this change, but we'd like to plan to cancel 4 late start Wednesdays, May 25th, June 1st, June 8th, and June 15th. Felt like that was the best way to do it. I mean, nothing's ideal, but for parents to plan, those are the last 4 of the year, and that makes up instructional time that we would lose by not having school on the 21st. So we've talked to the DOE, they're fine with it. We've talked as an ad team, the administrators talked with their leadership team. So I don't know if you have any questions, but we'd like to have a vote so that we can communicate this out, hopefully to parents and families so that they can start to plan.
Any questions on this?
I move to approve the end of the year schedule.
Meg can't vote fast enough. Anybody, second, please? Yes, thank you, Jamie. All right, all in favor? Yeah. All right. Tell everybody. Okay, 12.6.
And these are just first readings, no action tonight, more just for you to kind of digest them. I would say that 12.6A, teaching about controversial, sensitive issues. I did get some feedback from the SAA, just their thoughts on it. So I'll bring those back to the policy committee when we meet later this week. And then I know that Jamie sent me something about, I think it was compulsory or truancy. I'm not sure which one, but something to do with, another topic to possibly add into one of those policies. So again, they may come back to you. Those two may come back to you for another first reading, or if the policy committee is ready, they'll come back in May for a second reading.
Okay. So when you said they got back to you, what was about the
just some,
some wording?
Yeah, just some wording and maybe the meaning of certain things.
Yeah.
Nothing that would change the intent of the
Yeah.
policy. It was just kind of having a conversation with them. So I'll be in touch with them.
We're gonna send this to Florida. Okay. I had to. I'm sorry. So let's see. So there's that one. Are there any questions about these policies right now?
I just had
Yeah, sure.
about the teaching about controversial and sensitive issues. My one just was like under A, number 4, is it really needed, that part with a minimum of emphasis on opinion? I felt like it could just be one statement there without that. And then I was just wondering where this draft came from. Are other schools using this, or?
Yeah, I mean, this came from Maine School Management, who
Okay.
we rely on for policies. And there are districts, in Maine that have adopted it as is. And then there are districts that are kind of taking their time a little bit and making sure that, that comfort level is there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So we can look at that. When you're talking about that wording, you were saying that last phrase, you weren't sure needs to be with a minimum emphasis on opinion.
Yeah.
Like, why does it really? Yeah. Because it is all about critical thinking and factual analysis, right? I mean, opinions are going to enter into the conversation, but right, I know what you're saying. Okay. Just so I understand, I think it was under truancy. So it's 6. So it's changed. The law changed from 7 to 6 years of age. That it's compulsory to be in school now. And then, so when you're saying that a child 5 years of age, this is about if they're going to a day school. That's what you're saying is if they're attending something, then they're committed. So you can't just say, well, I'm attending this day school and not show up. Is that what?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that what? No, is that what that's saying with the 5 and yet under 6? Okay. Make sure I was reading that right. And is the what's changed with this evaluation of admin staff?
Nothing basically except those last two, really it's just, we do reviews of policies, and it's just basically the bottom thing is, talking about the standards for leaders and things like that, but really it's nothing that's.
Okay, so it's not new.
No,
it's just
no.
wasn't in there before.
No, this is not a new policy. It's just a review.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other questions on these? No action needed tonight. All right. God, just under the wire. Don't have to vote to keep moving. All right. Next meeting dates. We'll be here next week, folks. Hopefully just make a decision and sign warrants. And then our next meeting will be the 23rd of May. Move to adjourn. Bill, Jamie, all in favor?